Success has a cruel way of hiding right behind the moment you feel like giving up. Most people think they fail because they aren't good enough, but the truth is much simpler. They just stop. They walk away from years of hard work, simply because the finish line is invisible to the naked eye. But there is a specific, invisible line where your struggle finally turns into a fortune. And most of us turn around just inches before we hit it. Today, we are going to find exactly where that line is, because walking away too soon is a debt you can never repay. The air in the Sierra Nevada mountains during the mid-1800s was a thick cocktail of pine resin, dry dust, and a desperate kind of hope. It was a land where men aged 10 years in a single summer, their skin turning to leather under the relentless California sun. R.U. Darby was one of those men. He came from the east, driven by the same fever that had pulled thousands across the continent, the promise of gold. After weeks of back-breaking labor, swinging a heavy pickaxe until his palms were a map of blisters and raw flesh, he found it. A vein of shining or peeked out from the gray quartz, like a secret waiting to be told. But to get the gold out, he needed more than a shovel. He needed machinery. Darby didn't hesitate. He covered up the mine, marked the spot, and traveled back to his home in Maryland. He told his relatives about the strike. He spoke with a conviction that made them open their wallets. They pooled their life savings, bought the necessary heavy drills and/or cars, and shipped them halfway across the country. Darby returned to the mountain with his uncle, their hearts hammering against their ribs with every mile. They weren't just miners anymore. They were about to become kings. The first car of ore they mined was sent to a smelter. The return came back, and the results were staggering. They had discovered one of the richest mines in all of California. Just a few more cars like that, and they would clear every cent of debt. After that, the profit would be pure, staggering wealth. The drills hummed. The picks swung with a new, rhythmic energy. Every man in the camp could already taste the fine whiskey and feel the silk sheets that awaited them back in civilization. Then, without warning, the rainbow ended. The vein of gold, or simply vanished. They were drilling into the dark heart of the mountain, but the gold was gone. They doubled their efforts. They worked through the night, their lanterns casting long, jagged shadows against the tunnel walls. They followed every lead, every tiny shimmer in the rock. But it was all pot gold, worthless glimmers that led to nothing but more grey stone. The machinery, once the herald of their fortune, now sounded like a funeral dirge. Every foot they drilled cost more money they didn't have. They were no longer mining for wealth. They were mining for survival, trying to find the trail they had lost. Weeks turned into a month. The optimism that had fueled their return evaporated, replaced by a cold, hollow realization. Darby and his uncle sat in the dim light of their cabin, the silence between them heavy with the weight of their family's lost savings. They had gone deeper than anyone expected, but the mountain had turned its back on them. The decision was made with a bitter finality. They quit. They hauled the heavy machinery back to the surface, looking at it not as a tool for success, but as a monument to their failure. They found a local junkman, a fellow who spent his days collecting the discarded remains of other people's dreams. They sold the entire outfit, the drills, the cars, the tools for a $1,000, just enough to buy train tickets back home, to face the people whose money they had buried in the dirt. The junkman, however, was a man of a different temperament. He didn't just see a pile of scrap metal. He looked at the mine Darby had abandoned. He wasn't a mining expert, But he knew that sometimes the eyes of a frustrated man miss what the brain of a calm man can see. He took a portion of the money he had left and hired a mining engineer. He didn't want the engineer to dig. He wanted him to calculate. The engineer spent a day inside the tunnel, measuring the angles of the rock and studying the fault lines that ran through the quartz like veins. He emerged from the dark, wiping the dust from his spectacles, and pointed to a specific spot on the wall of the shaft. He explained that Darby's failure wasn't a lack of effort, but a lack of knowledge regarding fault lines. The gold hadn't disappeared. The mountain had simply shifted. The vein would pick up again, he calculated, exactly 3 feet from where Darby had stopped drilling. The junk man followed the engineer's instructions. He set the drills against the cold grey stone. He didn't need weeks. He didn't even need a full day. After only a few hours of work, the drill bit broke through into a chamber of pure, radiant gold. It was the same vein Darby had found, but richer, wider, and more concentrated than before. The junk man became a multi-millionaire because he had the presence of mind to seek counsel before giving up. Darby, on the other hand, was already on a train heading east, his pockets empty and his spirit broken, never knowing that he was only 36 inches away from the life he had dreamed of. The tragedy of the gold miner isn't that he failed, it's that he stopped counting. We often mistake a temporary wall for a dead end, forgetting that the darkest part of the night is always just before the sun breaks the horizon. In our own lives, we are all miners. We spend our energy and our years drilling through the hard rock of circumstance, hoping to strike the vein of our purpose. The gold disappears. The loudest voice in our head is the one telling us to cut our losses. But persistence isn't just about working hard. It's VA having the clarity to realize that the breakthrough is often hidden just behind the next layer of resistance. I've stood where Darby stood. I've felt the suffocating weight of a dead mine in my own endeavors, feeling the sting of every no and the exhaustion of effort that seemingly goes nowhere. But I've learned that the no we hear from the world is often just a test to see if we're truly ready for the yes. Don't let 3 feet of dirt steal your legacy. Keep drilling, not with desperation, but with the quiet confidence that the vein is still there, waiting for those who refuse to walk away. Plant a new seed of wisdom for your soul every day by subscribing to Seeds of Life together. We will grow stronger through these valuable lessons.